Good evening and welcome to the City of Oxnard Planning Commission regular meeting for Thursday, June 16th, 2022. Our start time this evening is exactly 6 p.m. A quick housekeeping item as shown on the agenda and online, please email all written public comments to planning@oxnard.org. Those wishing to speak during the meeting may do so in person or virtually. For in-person speakers, please submit your speaker card to the Commission Secretary. For virtual speakers, please view the bottom of your screens for the call-in number, meeting ID, and passcode. If you dial in only, you may press *9 to raise or lower your hand. If you are on the desktop Zoom app, you may use the raise hand feature. You may also submit your request to speak by visiting oxnard.org/city-meetings by 3 p.m. the day of the meeting. Because the meeting is electronic, all votes will be done by roll call. We'll now move to our acting commission secretary to establish our quorum.
Thank you, Chair. Chair Chavez,
Here.
Vice Chair Rejo,
Here.
Commissioner Connolly,
Here.
Commissioner Dr. Lopez,
Here.
Commissioner Nash,
Here.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Present.
and Commissioner Meyer is absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you. And with that, we'll move to our next item, which is our Pledge of Allegiance. And Commissioner Dr. Lopez, would you mind leading us this evening?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. We'll now move to our next item, which is public comments for items not on our agenda. Members of the public wishing to address the Planning Commission regarding any item not on the agenda, but within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission may do so at this time. However, the commission cannot take action on any items presented during public comments and will be referred to the commission secretary. All public comment speakers will have 3 minutes. And Mr. Pearson, just to confirm, we did not have anyone sign up for this item, correct?
Chair, no, we did not have anyone sign up for this item.
Thank you. So we'll go ahead and proceed with our agenda. Under consent agenda, we have nothing listed. We'll move to ex parte declarations for public hearing items. Vice Chair Rejo.
None, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Connolly.
None, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
None, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Nash.
None, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Sanchez.
None, thank you.
Thank you. And none for myself. So we'll go ahead and proceed with our first public hearing item, which is F1. Our project name is Via Restaurante Alcohol Special Use Permit, Planning and Zoning Permit number 22-510-02, Special Use Permit Alcohol. This is located at 1601 South Victoria Avenue, Suite 160-B. A request to sell beer, wine, and distilled spirits. This is a Type 47 ABC license for on-site consumption at a proposed 3,423 square foot restaurant with 2 outdoor patio measuring approximately 350 square feet, each on a 2.6 acre site within the coastal plan unit community zone. The applicant is requesting that the alcohol sales and consumption be allowed from 7 a.m. to 1 a.m. The project is exempt from environmental review pursuant to Section 15301, existing facilities, Class 1 of the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines. This is filed by Matthew Olofs, the designated agent on behalf of the property owner at Seabridge Partners. Our city staff person is Randy Baez, associate planner. Recommendation from the Planning Commission is to find the project categorically exempt from environmental review pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 5301, existing facilities, and adopt a resolution 2022-XX approving planning and zoning permit number 22-510-02, special use permit alcohol, subject to certain findings and conditions. As a reminder to my colleagues and the members of the public, a pre-recorded presentation is available on the city's YouTube channel in accordance with Measure M. We'll now turn to our city staff person, Mr. Baez, for any additional information on this item.
Thank you, Chair Chavez, and good evening, commissioners. Although the applicant does not have a presentation tonight, They are here and available for any questions that you may have. In addition, we do have an errata memo that includes modifications to some of the conditions of approval to help with some redundancies. In addition to that, we did receive a public comment letter from the applicant requesting additional changes to
Mr. Baez, for the benefit of the public and my colleagues, can you summarize briefly what that public comment from the applicant was in regards to that email?
Sure. The applicant is requesting further changes to some of the standard police department conditions, which include that customers should be able to consume alcohol from original containers. Currently, the police department does have a standard condition to not allow beverages in bottles or cans. In addition, the applicant does have some concerns regarding the hours of alcohol sales, as well as the hours of operation for the kitchens. And lastly, they do have a concern regarding the security conditions, such as bolting down cash registers and having a camera system for security.
Thank you, Mr. Baez. Commissioners, any questions for staff or the applicant team? Commissioner Nash, followed by Vice Chair Recco, followed by Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. These will be for Mr. Swenson, if he's here. He's kind of hidden. Did you get a letter of this email from the applicant?
Yes, sir. If it's the one I believe it is, I have had correspondence from them.
Right, where he wanted some modifications. Do you have a problem with any of the modifications dealing with alcohol?
I do.
Could you explain your concerns?
Yeah. Let's see. As far as the containers that alcoholic beverages are served in, there needs to be a clear differentiation between the containers that are non-alcoholic versus those that are alcoholic. That way, the servers, managers, and any police officer that might enter the premise can immediately see, oh, that person looks like a minor, and they've obviously got a container in front of them that would be normally in the setting would be an alcoholic beverage.
Right, but if the beverage is in a glass, you can't. You really have no way of telling what it is.
It depends on the nature of the glass. If it's a glass that would normally have a margarita in it, that's easily spotted because of the size or shape of the glass, and it's kind of an industry standard. Whereas a cup of coffee is in a cup of coffee, or a soda is in a different kind of glass. The other issue is with things like beer bottles. They tend to become missiles in a fight because they have a nice handle on them, bar bottles. And we've always strayed away from beer bottles being served at the table, pouring it, yes, but not having it on the actual table if something goes wrong.
Okay, and then you also have one concerning the time of serving.
This is probably one of the biggest issues we have. If you're a type 41 or 47, you are entering the alcohol realm to be a restaurant and to sell food. And alcohol is something that's part of your menu to pair with whatever food items you have. We've taken a position for quite some time that if you're going to serve food in Oxnard, usually people don't go out for restaurants to eat dinner after 10 o'clock. They may go to a nightclub that late, but restaurants morphing into nightclubs become a great community problem. they eat up police services, and they generate DUIs.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to speak on the cash register?
I can very well, thank you. In the case of the cash registers, and we occasionally run into pushback on this issue, we've had occasion where cash registers are a place where the business operator will put in the next day's startup cash and close and lock it, and they think it's all safe there. Problem is all it takes is a window smash and an unsecured cash register, and they just carry the register away. At the latter part of 2015 and early 2016, we had 17 businesses in Oxnard that had window smash burglaries, where the cash register was either rifled through or just plain taken. 10 of those cases were restaurants where the cash registers were lifted out of the store and run away with.
Do you know if this particular commercial development has 24-hour security?
I don't believe that the site has 24-hour present security, meaning an officer on site the whole time.
Okay, well, not this specific site, but
The shopping
overall
center. I am
shopping
unaware that
center.
they have 24-hour security.
Okay, thank you for that. Could I have the applicant come up and address these issues? Thank you, Mr. Swenson.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Matt Olafs. Thank you for getting my name right earlier, Mr. Commissioner. You had some questions, or would you like me to
Well,
address?
we can go through them one by one. As far as being able to serve the beverage in its original container, I mean, I know for myself, sometimes I like drinking beer out of a bottle. It's just a personal preference. And I'm not so worried about there being an alcohol riot because of the nature of this restaurant. So I'm not too concerned about that. But do you think your customers would have that they would demand, well, I want my beer or whatever in its original bottle?
Potentially. I think you've hit on the disconnect here between the conditions that were originally proposed and the issues that we're having. The type of restaurant that we're doing is white tablecloth sit down Italian. So it's not the nightclub high intensity environment that these conditions were originally drafted for. These were actually drafted by Chris Weir, Mr. Swenson's predecessor, for a nightclub environment. And we absolutely understand how the conditions that are there would mitigate those concerns in an environment where you can't tell if someone's 21 or you can't tell what they're drinking. That's really not the case here. This is a lot of uplighting. This is a white tablecloth sit down in the Channel Islands neighborhood. It's the Beverly Hills of Oxnard. So I think to apply these more restrictive conditions would really require it to be in a problem area, or if we were having an inordinate amount of entertainment, which we're not allowed to under the remaining conditions that are on this license, or if you have a problem operator. Mr. Lowe owns two other restaurants in the immediate area, the Raven Tavern and Fisherman's Catch, and does a fantastic job without blemish in each location. He's one of the braver operators who opened all three locations here during COVID. So he's really the type of person that you want injecting money into the city of Oxnard. All that being said, with this concept, we do intend to have customers come in and sample craft cocktails, craft beers, that kind of thing, with the Italian influence. And a lot of those do include Firestone has a great sort of whiskey barrel aged beer that's really good and has to be drank from the nitrous bottle. It's just part of the concept. So to say no to a customer and have to state that our conditions require us to pour this into a glass, it's just an awkwardness we'd like to avoid.
Now, with the applicant wanting to extend the hours for serving alcohol, I don't know how many customers you would actually have. I know the Raven is a little bit different because you do offer music and such, Do you plan to offer music and any sort of entertainment at this restaurant?
Background music. If there are live performers, it'll be relegated to acoustic only and all background. There's no room for a full entertainment venue that a lot of these conditions address, and we're not allowed to have amplified music that goes beyond the confines of the premises.
But do you expect to have much clientele after 10 o'clock? Because I mean, I know Oxnard a little bit, and it's like we shut down pretty
Yeah.
early. So, but I'm not in the restaurant business, so I'm certainly no expert on that.
Typically, no. Our issue is that the ABC doesn't differentiate between sales, service, and consumption. So if we forward these conditions as is, where sales have to stop at 11, which we're actually okay with stopping sales at that point, the ABC will cut off everything, sales, service, and consumption at that time. The city attempted to build in some times here where we could extend for special events like New Year's, corporate events, Valentine's Day, that kind of thing, to go later. But we wouldn't actually be able to do that because the ABC will take this figure and do a hard number, and there's no special event extension for the ABC. So if 11 o'clock is the time, we would actually have to cut off our people at 10 so that we're sure that whoever bought bottles of wine would be done by that time. It's just really, again, not matching the business model to say have a $300 bottle of wine, but we're taking it back in an hour.
So you would like the consumption to extend beyond 12 a.m. or?
Ideally, we would like sales, service, and consumption to all stop at midnight. And we're completely fine with that. And
So
then as,
consumption to stop at midnight also.
yes, sales, service, and consumption, all the above. We're happy if you can differentiate sales to stop at 11 o'clock, consumption to stop at midnight. We're fine with that. But again, that might create a problem with ABC. So we'd prefer a clean, hard line.
As far as the requirement to bolt down your cash register, I mean, that just seems like common sense to me. I don't understand your resistance to that.
It used to 10 years ago when there was a cash register station. Nowadays, everyone walks around with cash drawers, and everything is done pretty much at the table. So the bolting of it just requires an extra location that's going to be a center for cash. We'll actually create an environment where there's one location where someone can come in. Even in that case, though, I think we'd rather someone is able to pick it up and leave and not have to rip apart a table to get it if they're really dedicated. But all that being said, these were drafted many years ago when people actually paid in cash. You're looking at about 90% customers paying with credit cards and Apple Pay and such now. So it's no longer really an issue. So all those cash handling procedures really pertain to nightclubs only. And even those are switching more into the credit card model these days.
Okay, so you'd rather have the guy take the cash register rather than, as you said, rip it out and cause more damage to the counter and what have you. So I can understand that. Okay, I think that concludes all of my questions. Thank you, Chair Chavez, for that opportunity. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
We'll
you.
go to Vice Chair, followed by Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
Thank you very much, Chair. My first question or questions was to Mr. Bays. I wanted to know the nature of, it appears that there were some problems by the city or by the Planning Commission staff to not have these. Could you tell, if any, the nature of the communications before this email came to the Planning Commission, and does the does the staff agree with the comments by Mr. Swenson in regards to these by the police department?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the first part of that question?
Yes, I wanted to know why I assume that there were communications in regards to these conditions. Were the problems from, or was the pushback from the staff because of the police department's concerns?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and I assume that you agree with Mr. Swenson's comments in regards to all of these conditions or proposed?
I'll defer that to the secretary, actually.
Vice Chair Rejo, so yes, staff would support the police department's recommendations in terms of the conditions being put forward.
Okay. In regards to, at least for staff, is there any problem if the planning commission decided to postpone this until a later time?
No, no concern.
Thank you very much, Chair. That's all the questions I had.
Thank you, Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
I had a question in terms of the conditions and more specifically the conditions in question by the applicant. Are those consistent for the other restaurants in the Seabridge neighborhood? So meaning like Yolanda's, the Raven Tavern, the Kitanoya, do they all have the same consistent conditions of operation?
Sure, I'll defer that to Mr. Swenson.
Thank you for the questions. Some of these conditions are a number of years older. In the case of the Raven, I believe the resolution, the Planning Commission resolution for that was done in 2010. And these conditions evolve over the years. As an example, with the cash register incident, that was 2016, 2015. And so when we see that kind of threat to a business, we're going to try to harden the target and make it safer for that business. So they're not all equal, but when it comes to the standard conditions that you see here currently, we went back and did just an analysis of the restaurants, the type 41s and 47s that we've done the last 5 or 6 of them. And they all had basically the same conditions. They weren't in quite the same order because sometimes the order gets changed, but they covered the same topic areas like the bolting down to the register, like the beverage container issue. The hour does tend to vary depending on the venue for a number of reasons, and I can get into that if the commissioners would like me to.
So specifically for the service part of it, would this be later than the hours of operation for the other restaurants in that same shopping center?
The Raven has a later time, either midnight or 1 o'clock, if I remember correctly. In the case of Yolanda's, they close, I want to say, at 10 on weekend nights. They have one of the older special use permits for their premise, and they choose not to be open later.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions from the commission? Commissioner Sanchez.
Okay. Thank you. Just a question having to do with the parking situation. Basically, it seems like I was looking at this part of it where they're talking about there's sometimes on a seasonal time, like maybe summer, for example, where you get an influx of people. And so, and then I saw some of the other parts where there's been there's been some changes, taking using other parking lots and things like that. It's still very busy, but is there a possibility of having more places where you can park cars? Because it's successful, which is a good thing, and so that's a good thing. So is there still a need to find more parking somewhere close by?
Yeah, thank you for that question. We do understand that there is a parking issue in that area, but you are correct. It's because the businesses are being successful. But there is additional parking near that shopping center that the Seabridge community actually let us know about. It's located a little bit south of the site near the work-live units. And they've gone into an agreement with the applicant to have their employees park in that extra parking lot.
Sounds very good. Thank you.
Any additional questions from the commission? Mr. Bias, just real quick, if you could just clarify one thing for me, because I'm confused by this one right here. In the beginning of this item, I read the description for this item, and about midway down, it says the applicant is requesting that alcohol sales and consumption be allowed from 7 a.m. to 1 a.m. But according to the email that was coming from the applicant's team, it's saying that alcohol consumption, let me correct myself. We agree that alcohol sales shall be discontinued at 11 p.m. But it says, please confirm that ABC license conditions shall state that the consumption of alcoholic beverages shall be discontinued at or by 12 a.m. That sounds like two different timeframes for me. Can you just clarify as to why is one saying 12 and why is the agenda saying 1 a.m.?
Thank you, Chair Chavez. Yes, the original request was to allow for sales until 1 a.m., but those have since changed. And now the police and the applicant are requesting the different hours between 11 and 12 a.m.
Okay. Mr. Swanson, just a couple of questions. And these are based off of some of the comments that the applicant made. Can you talk about this hard stop time that he's referring to in regards to the ABC saying if you say 11 o'clock, everything is done by 11 o'clock?
So there's a difference between the city's document, the city's SUP, and ABC's document. Now, I have not seen what's been processed through ABC on behalf of the applicant. But the general hard stop time for ABC is 2 a.m. But the city has, in their SUP process, regulates when to stop sales, not consumption, sales. And that's where I think we have some differences. If I were an officer walking into the business and they had stopped sales at 11 o'clock, but people were still there finishing up their meals or whatever at 11:30, I wouldn't see an issue. It's the stop of sales under our SUP language.
Now, I'm assuming that the ABC supersedes any documents that the city has, or are they equal?
Not necessarily supersedes. They stand on different foundations for different reasons. One other issue that is kind of tied to this, and I fully acknowledge the representation of the applicant being a responsible restaurateur with other operations that are well run. The issue is our SUP goes with the land. And if the business is sold, the ABC license is transferred to another location, our SUP still stays with the land. And as long as that SUP is used again within 6 months, it could have a completely different ABC license, same type number, but not with the same conditions or whatever from ABC. So we write our conditions so that they would go on for future operators, no matter what kind of business model they may come up with, as long as it's a type 47. And so that it's we're not in lockstep with ABC, and nor are they with us. They need to obey both at the same time. And I'll refer to legal counsel if they want to further explain that.
Very briefly, it would be the most restrictive conditions that are imposed. So if the city has alcohol sales ending at an earlier time, that would supersede what the ABC does. So we have that right. We have the local control.
Thank you for that. Do we have, are you aware of any issues that the applicant brought up that if we impose saying 11 o'clock is the sales stop, that consumption must also stop because that's what ABC is saying that must occur? Are you aware of any information in regards to that?
I've not seen any documentation from ABC. If they have a document from ABC that says that's when their hard stop time is, please share it with me. Because for me, if the hard stop sign, and for the city of Oxnard, is stop of sales.
I appreciate that, Mr. Swanson. Now, it was also mentioned that there could be some type of beverages for wine tasting or cocktail tasting, and one of those beverages had to be tasted in a bottle. Under the conditions that are currently being proposed, because a staff member is with that party, would a bottle be acceptable or not?
You know, I'm inclined to say that we can be flexible in the bottle issue. It's the other types of containers that you'd have mixed drinks in, that they would need to be differentiated from what a Coca-Cola would be served in, as opposed to a mixed drink. And as long as they abided by that industry standard of having different types of containers for alcoholic beverages. And yeah, go ahead. And I recognize we're in a time of craft beers and whatnot, and showing that, you know, brand is a pretty big deal. It's not quite the same issue that we had 20 years ago, when some of these conditions were originally drafted, where we really would walk into bars and restaurants that were out of control, and bottles were held as weapons.
Thank you for that, Mr. Swenson. In regards to the silent alarms, the applicant believes that it is excessive to have silent alarms at each of the registers. Based off of your knowledge in the application, how many registers does this establishment plan on having?
I don't know that they plan to have any, but if they do have them, we would like them to be bolted down.
Bolted down. And in terms of the silent alarm, can you just briefly describe what the purpose of the silent alarm is?
To get the police rolling in the event that there is a robbery or other crisis incident going on. And with some of the violence that's going on in our society these days, having a panic alarm in a public venue like schools is highly beneficial for the police, because being able to make that call is a lot more difficult than just pushing a button.
Thank you, Mr. Swenson. If I can call the applicant team up, please. A couple of questions. You made the comment that it is white tablecloth, supposed to be a nice setting. I'm assuming it's supposed to be, I don't want to say like the Olive Garden, but it's supposed to be classy, right?
Definitely not the Olive Garden, but yes, classic.
But I'm curious in regards to payment methods. You're saying that many the payments would be done at the tables. So you're having a POS system on the actual tabletop?
No, nowadays they're done with remote iPads with the servers that
Mhm.
fit right into the pocket. We're even experimenting with people being able to pay on their own phones. And under definitions of cash registers, it just gets really muddled about what that's going to mean.
And in
Again,
the
these are-
event, sorry, and in the event that a patron does decide to pay with cash, what are their options if it's a mobile device by the server?
Yeah, they would have to give the cash to the server, who goes back behind the bar, and there will be a cash drawer there for them to exchange. So there
Okay.
will have to be cash on site just in case for that small percentage of customers. And typically it's a $200 situation of 5s and 1s at the beginning of a shift. So
Based off of the other restaurants that the owner has, what is, I won't ask that. Yeah, that would be too much. Okay, thank you.
if I could make one quick point, I would like to direct commissioners to paragraph 49 in the conditions, which we did effectively negotiate with the city, where these conditions are all actually personal to this applicant and this location. If there's ever a person-to-person or individual transfer of the location to another party, these will not run with the land. The city will have the opportunity to reinvestigate and reapply conditions based on the new concept. I want to make sure that's clear.
Point of information, Chair.
Vice Chair.
I think he's referring to our condition 50. It appears that some of his conditions that he stated are one-off. So just wanted to direct my fellow commissioners to that.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Any additional questions, Commissioner Nash?
Thank you, Chair Chavez. while we still have the applicant at the dais. So just to get this straight, you're comfortable with limiting the containers to beer and I guess wine, but not cocktail type drinks?
We'd prefer just to be able to serve in any container we like. The plan is to have specific cocktail drinks that go with the presentation of specific cocktails. Beer glasses for beer, that kind of thing. But we want the ability to serve in bottles or whatever we like. It creates a situation with staff where we have to have a whole section of alcoholic glasses and a whole section of non-alcoholic glasses if we're to abide by these conditions. This condition was really crafted for nightclubs so that police could go into a dark environment and pick out really quickly who's drinking and who's not, and relate that to who's underage. Again, this is a sit-down white tablecloth restaurant. It's not really going to be an issue. And I think if police are walking through, they'll be able to simply ask.
I think there's some confusion. On my part, I don't understand why a cocktail would need to be served in its original container.
Oh, there are some that come in original containers now. Cocktails do not necessarily have to be, though. 99% of them would be in a specific glass.
All right. Well, I'm looking for some way to reach a compromise here, because
Yeah, which we're open
you kind
to.
of want to do everything your way, and the police department has their concerns. So I'm looking for some sort of compromise, I think.
Yeah, thank you. We're open to that. If we remove the requirement for bottles, like we're allowed to serve actually in bottles and cans in their original containers, then I think that meets with the majority of our concerns. The only crossovers that we're going to have are really the Long Island iced tea types of drinks that are in effectively Coke glassware. So
Well,
I guess that would be the
I guess
compromise.
I wasn't clear. I'm okay with wine and beer being served in their original containers, but I have a problem with cocktail type drinks.
Yeah,
Because
cocktails.
I just don't see that in the restaurants I go to, where
It's
and I
very
do
rare.
patronize the
There's only
Ravens,
one
so.
brand I can think of that serves cocktails in a can right now, and we're not planning to serve them at the moment. So I think we'd be okay with doing cocktails and
Okay, and then
specific
with
classes.
the time, you're okay with discontinuing sales at 11, but having consumption go to midnight.
That's correct. And if that's spelled out in the final SUP, then the ABC can take that and write up their hard line at 12 a.m. and we'd be very comfortable with that.
And as far as the kitchen closing down, the kitchen would close down when then at 11:30?
Yeah, we like it a half hour before the close of business. I'm sure you've all been to a table and seen them come up and say it's last call for the kitchen. We'd like to send home the bussers, the expediters, the prep cooks a little early and have the rest of the people stay to clean up.
Okay, now with the bolt down cash register, I do think that is kind of an archaic thing, because of our transitioning to everything is now a point of service.
Yeah,
I
it's a,
certainly don't pay in cash anymore, so.
it's all one system now. So the POS system and the cash drawer come together. So we would just have to figure out a way to screw down a computer system, which I don't know what that would do with our warranties. It's an extra step that seems unnecessary to us. So that's why.
Okay,
we
well,
listed it.
thank you for that. Thank you, Chair Chavez. That's all I have.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Any additional questions? At this time, we'll go ahead and go to open the public testimony portion for this. We have a speaker ending in 2386.
Yes.
Did we lose them?
Chair, looks like they left the meeting.
We can see if they join back. No. No. And then we have two other individuals on the call.
Okay, so as a reminder to any members that are participating during the public hearing portion, if you're in person, you may submit a speaker card to the commission secretary. If you're participating virtually, if you're dial-in only, you can press *9 to raise your hand to speak. Or if you're using the desktop Zoom app, you can use the raise hand feature located on the bottom. And if you do not see it on the bottom, you can click on the reactions icon and it should show raise hand. All right, so it looks like we got the caller back.
Yeah, so I will allow them.
So caller, you can go ahead and press *6.
Yes, hello, this is, good evening, Commissioner. This is Jim Gilmer. I'm a longtime resident of Oxnard, community activist. I want to thank you for allowing me to share tonight. I've been in Oxnard since 1974. I'm a Vietnam veteran. Some of you may have known me from many community organizations that I've been involved in, from gang prevention to homelessness to youth development to arts and culture promotion and so on. So I've been around Oxnard, Ventura, and the county all over. And I must say, I'm very, very, very concerned about Oxnard's marketability and increased tourism. Seabridge is the sort of champion of tourism until, you know, the lobster trap, former lobster trap in that area builds up, and, you know, what little we have at Hollywood Beach, but it's like the flagship. And I'm tired of seeing so many of our residents, even our young millennials, trek to Ventura. Ventura is wide open with arts and culture downtown, a lot of foot traffic, a lot of tourism. You know, most of our people go there. A lot of our people go there. And my involvement here at Seabridge, this is the only place I come to eat. Yolanda's, the Ravens, some of the other restaurants here. Every now and then I go down to my friends, the Dominic's in downtown, you know, and try to get some support. We have some Black restaurants now at CVS on Ventura and 5th Street, Chinaland. You know, I try to support my local business people. And so I'm asking, I had contacted, you know, Mayor John Zaragoza, as well as City Manager Alex, concerning this particular project, because I know Mr. Lowe, I frequent his restaurant at the Raven pretty much 3 or 4 times a week. This is pretty much an older crowd at the Raven. The restaurant, Via Ristorante, with an upscale Italian is needed so badly over here, particularly in the Seabridge community. It's going to bring a lot more foot traffic over here. And believe me, a lot of the people that I know at Yolanda's and Raven and soon to be Ristorante, a lot of people that just walk from the apartments, the townhomes, the Seabridge homes, walking along the promenade here. They're walking around here. And as holidays come around and summer comes around, people hang out later around the fountain, along the promenade and walkway, and they're out here till 11, 12, 1 at night. So how much time do I have? Can I continue?
20 seconds. Go ahead.
Okay. I support the hours at 12. It seems like, you know, a lot of the other conditions are archaic. Most of the people that I know that pay for their bills here use credit cards. It works fine. Very few people pay with cash. Yolanda's, Raven, most of the places here. So I think the conditions that Mr. Lowe and his representative have proposed should be supported. And let's bring tourism back to Oxnard, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, once again, if any members in the public in person wish to comment on this item, may do so by submitting a speaker card to the commission secretary. Members that are participating virtually may do so by raising their hand by pressing *9 if you're dialing in only. If you're using the Zoom desktop app, you can go ahead and use the raise hand feature. Seeing no one else for this one, we'll close the public hearing, the public comment for this item. And we'll bring it back to the commission for any additional questions that they may have. Commissioners, Commissioner Connolly.
I have a comment. I have a couple comments actually, and this comes from in my previous careers. I worked in the restaurant industry for a very long time, and I speak in support of the applicant's conditions, the changes to their conditions, because they do seem very reasonable. It seems to me that it's customary that most restaurants that I've been in have a soft drink glassware and water glassware. We see it at Larson's. So it seems pretty customary that that's not very challenging. And the no bottles and cans. I mean, I've never seen that in any establishment that I've been to, that they don't allow bottles and cans, specifically in Oxnard. I agree with what Mr. Swenson said as a safety concern in nightclubs. And then also during COVID, we had alcoholic beverages that were allowed to be taken to go. That is no longer the case. So as long as bottles and cans are opened at the restaurant, I don't see a challenge with that at all. The restaurants that I worked in did not have their cash register bolted to the bar. For those situations that Mr. Swenson referenced, I think that sounds to me like poor management. In my experience, we left our cash registers open. The money was locked in the safe every night, and that was customary across the board, both in Oxnard establishments that I worked in and in Los Angeles establishments. So like I said, I speak in support of these conditions. They don't seem outlandish at all. And it's what I experienced, like I said, working in restaurants in the city of Oxnard and in Los Angeles. And I haven't seen challenges or these situations in other restaurants that I've been a patron at. So thank you.
Thank you. Any additional commissioners with any comments or questions? I do have a question. If the applicant team can come back real quick. You had mentioned in regards that by us saying 11 o'clock is the stop time for alcohol sales, that ABC will automatically take that as the hard stop time. Where in the ABC regulations does it state that?
That's been on every license condition that I've ever seen. It's always sales, service, and consumption all in one line. They never differentiate between the three. So if sales stops at 11 p.m., service and consumption would stop at that time as well. And that's in the history of opening restaurants, I probably opened over 500 of them. So
you're saying that that's on the ABC permit, the license itself?
The license itself will be issued with conditions, and the conditions that come out have always a cutoff time. They don't allow anyone to go to 2 a.m. anymore, even though that's the state legal limit. Each new license comes out with a set of conditions, one of which always includes a cutoff time for sales, service, and consumption, and it's one time. They can divide it between weekdays. You've seen it Monday through Thursday where it's one cutoff time, and Friday, Saturday where it's a different cutoff time. But it's always one time. They don't differentiate between sales and consumption.
Okay. So you're going based off of the permit. There's not actual language in the state's ABC's regulations book that you can direct me to.
I'm sure I could pull some up for you here if you'd like me to, or sample conditions. But
okay.
Our fear is they will not differentiate if we just tell them 11 o'clock. So we would need to differentiate in the SUP.
Okay. Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
To the applicant, and thank you to Commissioner Sanchez for asking the previous question on parking. Since the owner or the applicant already has those other successful businesses or restaurants in the area also, do they have any concern about the traffic and the parking being an issue for what I anticipate will be a very popular and successful business? Would the limitations of parking be a problem that you anticipate either for yourself or for your neighbors, the current established businesses there already?
It's been a big topic of conversation about how we would deal with special events and having, those sort of high traffic moments. And in those cases, we would probably have to hire out separate valet companies to manage. But the shopping center itself does have a substantial number of spaces, and the additional space next door, your colleague mentioned, is really sufficient to cover the day-to-day. So it would only be during special events that we could foresee in advance. And in that case, we'd have some people there to address it.
Certainly. And question for staff, both on the parking front or the conditions for the alcohol. Is there a stipulation of if something becomes a burden or problem for anybody, whether it's business or the immediate neighbors right there on Windshore Way, of being able to revisit these conditions one way or the other? I know we've seen that in other applicants before, so I was just wondering if that's something that if something becomes a nuisance, a problem, whether it's the alcohol, whichever way the commission goes, or whether it's the parking that just really becomes a nightmare. And I'm thinking because when you drive in, there's that roundabout, and then there's a loading and unloading, if you will, all in front of the storefronts. And for this business, it said that they were actually going to extend the patio in the front of the sidewalk. So I'm just thinking in terms of the traffic and that being a bigger problem than perhaps we foresee.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, a project like this wouldn't typically have those types of conditions. Those conditions of approval are typically found in the drive-through establishments, some of which might require like a parking management plan.
Right.
Yeah, but not typically in ABC SUVs.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? Commissioner Nash?
Chair Chavez, is this also our time to deliberate and make a motion? Well, I'm ready to make a motion if all of the other commissioners have said their piece.
Okay, do any commissioners have any comments or deliberations? Let me just say real quick, and then I'll give it back to you, Commissioner Nash. I think for the most part, I guess ultimately I'm wrestling with this idea of a white tablecloth having a Corona beer bottle on top of it, or a Modelo beer bottle, versus having a nice, elegant glass that is easily identified by any person. But yet what I'm hearing is our customers don't want a glass cup. They want that Corona bottle on top of that white tablecloth. That's what I'm hearing from the applicant team. In terms of the wine or the cocktail tasting, I would be okay with having those cocktails that come in their original containers for the sole purpose that there is an employee with that party at all times. It's a tasting, just like I've never been wine tasting, but I'm assuming you have an employee with you at all times. In terms of the registers being bolted down, I feel that's a little, I'm going to go ahead and be blunt about it. It's petty. Just bolt them down. What's the problem? A silent alarm, I completely agree. Silent alarms help people. They get there a lot faster than trying to dial 911 because now you have to answer 20 million questions. I wish our schools had them. In terms of the alcohol sales, and I don't want to be rude, but I was trying to look on the ABC website to try to find if they differentiate between sales, consumptions. Unfortunately, I'm not able to find it. It looks like this document is as big as the Robert's Rules of Order book. But at the same time, I have to rely on our staff who his primary job is dealing with these special use permits for alcohol. And if he has no knowledge or information in regards to that there has to be 2 definitional times, and that we have that local regulation that says, this is where we're telling you can't sell anymore. And if you can't offhand come and tell me, well, on this page and ABC says that they're both the same time, my license for my commercial license has all my conditions on one line, but it doesn't mean that it's all one condition that I have to follow. There are multiple conditions. And the comments are saying, well, our fear is, it doesn't tell me that that's really what's going to end up happening. It's a hunch. So I'm not okay with the proposed recommendations. And it almost sounds like I won't support any amendment that incorporates these recommendations. And I would only be able to support this application with our staff's recommendations for conditions of approval. Commissioner Nash.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. I'll try to incorporate everybody's concerns here. But first, I want to thank the applicant for putting in the time and the money and the effort to, give our community a nice restaurant. I've said this before, but I am so tired of spending my money in Ventura. And I don't think people realize what a wonderful spot this is. As I've mentioned before, I've patronized the Raven, and because I'm a senior citizen, we tend to go there in the afternoon. And it's a wonderful spot to then walk through the Seabridge neighborhood. It is absolutely fantastic and beautiful. And I don't think our residents appreciate what we have down there. So I expect this to be a success. I hope it is absolutely a success. I'll be down there quickly as soon as you open. So I am ready to move the staff's recommendations, but I also want to include some of the concerns that we received in the email. And I don't have the exact condition of approval for these items, but I think that Mr. Rizzo can figure things out. For number 1, I would want to limit that to strictly cans and bottles of beer and wine. I patronize a lot of restaurants, and I just never see the original containers of cocktails on people's table. Addressing Chair Chavez's concern, I do drink beer. Sometimes I prefer to have it in a bottle. I'm not always stuck with having wine at a white table, at a white tablecloth restaurant. I enjoy my beer, sometimes in a glass, sometimes in a bottle. So moving on to number 2, if I understood the applicant, we will discontinue alcohol sales at 11 p.m. But consumption can continue until midnight. And we would also allow the kitchen to close at 11:30. I believe that if I heard that right. So that takes us to number 4. I think that in deference to the police department, we should listen to what they have to say about bolting down the cash register and install the silent alarm. So I want to keep that condition of approval. And I think that pretty much sums up what I've heard tonight. If our staff is on the same page here.
Commissioner Nash, looking at the conditions, it's like condition 24, which is talks about the containers. So right now the sentence second to last sentence reads the sale or service of alcohol in the original containers, bottle or can is prohibited. If we remove the bottle or can and left the rest and then put except for beer and wine, that address your comment?
Right. Include beer, allow beer and wine containers, but not cocktails.
So there would be an exception for beer and wine there. And then, sorry, if I go back to the second item regarding the hours, which is condition 15, it looks like. So there would be a line added that alcohol consumption shall be completed by 12 a.m. Does that work? So they would still be allowed to sell alcohol to 11, but consumption would be completed by 12.
Sales stop at 11, consumption stops at 12.
Yes. And then the condition regarding the silent alarm would remain. And I'm not sure if I'm clear on the kind of response to item number 3. I believe the applicant was referencing condition 22, which is the menu should not be reduced in any number or substance at any time alcohol is being served. And I guess, Scott, as I'm, sorry, Mr. Swenson, I guess would this prevent the kitchen from closing if the sales would still stop at 11? So you're asking that the kitchen be closed at like 10:30? Okay. Is that,
I think that's reasonable.
we added language that said until 30 minutes prior to sale of alcohol, that we can kind of flesh out the language as we go through it, but I think that would address the intent of your
Thank you.
comments.
So that's my motion. Thank you, Chair Chavez.
A point of information, Chair.
Vice Chair Rojo.
Can the commissioner please restate his motion? I'm unsure of where the motion stands or how it's stated right now. Thank you.
I could do that, or staff could read back the motion if they have one, just to make sure they got all of the points.
Yeah, so it'd be moving staff's recommendation with changes to conditions 22. So yeah, with changes to condition 24 to allow for beer and wine to be served in their original containers, to modify condition number 15 to allow consumption till 12 p.m. or 12 a.m., but all sales would stop at 11, and essentially allow the kitchen to close 30 minutes prior to the end of the sale of alcohol. So it'd be essentially 10:30.
That is correct. That is my motion.
And sorry, commissioners, if I could add, again, there was the errata memo that was also provided to you guys. So we would also want to incorporate those changes as well.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
There was a errata memo to the conditions which was provided prior to the meeting. It should be in the agenda.
Okay.
Mr. Swenson, can I ask you to come back up, please?
Okay, do I need to say that also, that to include the what was your term?
Yes, Commissioner asked if you could just
Just to
state
include the
that the
removed
motion
condition.
includes those changes.
Just to remove just to include
Include the modifications
include
as
the
indicated.
modifications. Thank you.
Since there was some amendments, do you see any issues with the motion that's on the floor?
No, I think it's appropriate and well considered.
Thank you. A motion has been put before by Commissioner Nash in order to approve staff's recommendation with the following amendments, including the amendments in the Areta memo. Is there a second on that motion? Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to find the project to be categorically exempt from environmental review pursuant to California Environmental Quality Act Guidelines, Section 15301, existing facilities, and adopt the Resolution 2022 XX approving planning and zoning permit number 22-510-02 special use permit alcohol subject to certain finding conditions, along with the amendments to the sale and consumption of alcohol, the closure of the kitchen, as well as the type of bottles permitted for consumption within the restaurant, as well as with the Areta memo amendments. Is there any discussion on that motion? Vice Chair Rejo.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. So, I agree in general with how the project was originally presented, including with the RADA memo. In regards, I do appreciate the discussion conversation in regards to the public comment given to us and the discussion thereafter, whether or not they should be good, both from staff, the applicant, and from the Planning Commission itself. As the motion stands, I'm not leaning towards, I'm leaning against it as the motion stands. And so at this time, I move to break apart all the amendments that were attached to the main motion and vote on them separately. To give some context, I'm asking for a motion to consider all of the amendments that were put on staff's recommendation separately. Thank you. Yes, correct. I move to divide the amendments on top of the staff's recommendation.
It's been moved to divide the main motion from staff's Areta memo and the amendments put forth by Commissioner Nash. Wait a second.
Yeah.
Is there a second? Seeing and hearing none, the motion fails due to a lack of a second. Is there any additional discussions on the main motion? Seeing and hearing none, Commission Secretary, if we can have the roll call, please.
Yes, Commissioner Nash,
Aye.
Commissioner Dr. Lopez. Aye. Commissioner Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Rejo,
No.
and Chair Chavez.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Congratulations. And we'll go ahead and proceed to our next item. Our next item is F2, project name El Rio Market Alcohol Special Use Permit, planning and zoning permit number 21-510-03, special use permit alcohol. This is located at 2585 East Vineyard Avenue. It is a request for approval of a special use permit to sell beer, wine, and distilled spirits for off-site consumption. This is an ABC license type 21 at an existing 2,115 square foot commercial suite within a 13,247 square foot building for an existing convenience store market on a 0.84 acre site located at 2585 North Vineyard Avenue. This is within the general commercial plan development zone. Alcohol sales shall be limited to 7 a.m. to 12 a.m. daily. The project is exempt from environmental review pursuant to Section 15301, existing facilities. This is a Class 1 of the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines. This is filed by Ted Barnes. the designated agent on behalf of the property owner. Our city staff person, and once again, is Mr. Randy Bias, Associate Planner. The recommendation for the Planning Commission is to find the project to be categorically exempt from environmental review pursuant to CEQA Guidelines 15301, existing facilities, and adopt the resolution 2022-XX approving planning and zoning permit number 21-510-03, special use permit alcohol, subject to certain findings and conditions. We'll now go to Mr. Bias for any additional information on this item.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. The applicant does not have a presentation. However, he is here if you have any questions. In addition, he is requesting one last minute change to condition number 44 regarding the hours of operation. This would be changing the condition from 7 a.m. to 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. to 1 a.m., which is consistent with their current operating hours. And the police department is in support of that change.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for either staff or the applicant for this item? Seeing and hearing none, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing portion for this item. Members of the public wishing to speak on this item may submit a speaker card if in person to the commission secretary. If you're participating virtually, you can dial in only *9 to raise your hand, desktop, raise hand feature.
Chair, there are no speakers for this item.
Thank you. So we'll go ahead and close the public comments, bring it back to the commission for any questions or comments for this item. Seeing and hearing none, commission, the pleasure for this item. Vice Chair Rejo.
Thank you, Chair. I move staff's recommendation to find the project category exempt from CEQA Guidelines Section 15301 and adopt Resolution 2022-XX approving planning and zoning permit number 21-510-03, subject to certain findings and conditions. With the amendment to change
44.
condition number
44.
Thank you. 44 from the hours of 7 a.m. to 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. to 1 a.m.
Thank you. Is there Commissioner Connolly?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded for the commission to find the project to be categorically exempt from environmental review pursuant to California Environmental Quality Act Guidelines Section 15301, existing facilities, and adopt the resolution 2022-XX approving planning and zoning permit number 21-510-03, special use permit alcohol, subject to findings and conditions. In addition to the amendment to condition number 44 of hours of operations to be changed to 6 a.m. and concluding at 1 a.m. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing and hearing none, if we can have a roll call, please.
Vice Chair Rejo,
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner Nash,
Aye.
Commissioner Dr. Lopez. Aye. Commissioner Sanchez
Yes.
and Chair Chavez.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Congratulations. We'll go ahead and proceed to our next item. Project name is Mountain Mike's Pizza Alcohol Special Use Permit. This is planning and zoning permit number 22-510-01, special use permit alcohol. This is located at 1105 South Victoria Avenue. It requires to sell beer and wine, a type 41 ABC license, for on-site consumption at the proposed 2,420 square foot restaurant with an outdoor patio measuring approximately 300 feet on a 2.92 acre site located at 1105 South Victoria Avenue. This is within the Coastal Plan Unit Community Zone. The proposed standard hours of alcohol consumption are from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. The project is exempt from environmental review pursuant to Section 15301, existing facilities. This is a Class 1 of CEQA guidelines. This is filed by Bobby Singh, designated agent on behalf of the owner ROIC. Once again, we'll have our city staff person, Randy Baez, Associate Planner.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. The applicant does not have a presentation. However, he is joining us virtually. If you have any questions, or Bobby, if you want to say any words, just raise the hand.
Thank you. We'll take it to the commissioners if there's any questions for staff or the applicant on this item. The Vice Chair Rejo.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. A question for Mr. Swenson. Oh, then for staff. And Mr. Swenson, when he gets in, referring to page 6 of the packet given to us. I'm just looking at the crime rate comparisons. I just want assurance that even though it is below the commercial rate, it is above the city rate. I just want to get double confirmation that the police has, it seems like you have no concerns, even small concerns.
No concerns. The crime rate in this shopping center are low. You need to understand that under the resolution that got us the alcohol special use permit, it referred to a citywide average. And when you include the whole city, the crime rate is really low. When you look specifically at commercial properties are almost 3 times as high from the city average. So it always seems like the crime is high, and that varies from shopping center to shopping center. I'm not worried about the shopping center at all when it comes to crime issues.
Thank you, Mr. Swenson, and thank you, Chair. That's all I had.
Thank you. Any additional questions from the commission? Seeing and hearing none, we'll go ahead and open the public comments for this item.
Chair, there were no individuals who signed up to speak on this item.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and close the public comment, bring it back to the commission. Commissioner, any questions or comments for this item? Commissioners, what is the pleasure for this item? Vice Chair Rejo.
Thank you, Chair. I move staff's recommendation to find the project to be category exempt from environmental review pursuant to secret guidelines, section 15301, and adopt resolution 2022-XX approving planning and zoning permit number 22-510-01, subject to certain findings and conditions.
Thank you. Is there a second? A second by Commissioner Dr. Lopez. It's been moved and seconded to find the project to be categorically exempt from environmental review pursuant to California Environmental Quality Act guidelines, section 15301, existing facilities, and adopt the resolution 2022-XX approving planning and zoning permit number 22-510-01, special use permit, alcohol, subject to certain findings and conditions. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing and hearing none, if we can have the roll call, please.
Vice Chair Rejo,
Aye.
Commissioner Dr. Lopez. Aye. Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
Commissioner Nash,
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly,
Yes.
and Chair Chavez.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you and congratulations. We'll go ahead and proceed, and thank you to our staff, Mr. Baez and Mr. Swanson. We'll proceed to our agenda, study sessions and reports. Nothing is listed. We'll proceed to Planning Commission business. Commissioners, any business to bring before the commission? The Commissioner Nash.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. If we haven't done so already, I would like the Planning Commission to present a letter of appreciation to former Director Mr. Kolwitz.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. Any additional business? Seeing it.
General comments, I'll take advantage of the opportunity. I know I've said it before, and I'll say it again to my fellow commissioners and certainly the staff as well, but I very much appreciate serving with you all. I appreciate your questions, your comments, the thorough deliberations. And the same thing goes for staff for all the hours and work that go into bringing these items before us today. Outside of the scope of this commission, I think coming from Oxnard High School's graduation today, the educator in me and my wife wants to just say congratulations to all our youth who are promoting into junior high or graduating from high schools. I think Wainimi High School had their graduation today. 3 of us are, I think, Vikings, but certainly Oxnard today and all the other high schools. Just a major congratulations to all of our youth and the families who are celebrating. Was very impressed with our police department. They're a part of our larger city staff and the way that they are working out there today to help navigate traffic throughout the city. I know that as a resident, certainly as a folks who own businesses also just appreciate their hard work in keeping everybody moving. In terms of one comment within the scope of this committee, I was wondering, Chair, if we'd be able to at least open the conversation on maybe having a study session on ADUs. I kind of have been seeing some chatter and comments on social media and email about, just ADUs in the city of Oxnard. And I think it would be prudent for this committee to just get a presentation on the process and at the same time serve both information and educational purposes for members of the public and anybody who perhaps may be interested. But thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dr. Lopez. Any additional business? We'll definitely second that, Commissioner Dr. Lopez, that on the future agenda, if we can have a study session on ADU as well as the information that changes to the Brown Act in terms of social media and how commissioners, are engaging with each other now. I know we've all received that confidential email, but maybe we can have something so that the public is aware. If there's no further business from the commission, we'll go ahead and move to our staff for their updates. Director Adamitis or Mr. Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Planning Commission. First off, want to express my appreciation for both Mr. Solis, Roy, for providing our support tonight to the commission and for taking on the effort to learn all of the equipment and the process to ensure that the meeting goes smoothly. So thank you for that. Also to interim planning manager, Mr. Pearson, for also coordinating and collaborating with our staff to ensure that the meeting went forward tonight and we were able to do so smoothly. I don't have any additional updates other than tomorrow is the State of the City event. Looking forward to that and hearing about all the great things happening in the city of Oxnard. And with that, I will turn over to Mr. Pearson.
Thank you. Just 2 things. So as I mentioned, I believe at our last meeting, again, the South Oxnard Aquatic Center is kicking off the design process. So one of the first kind of sessions is happening on Wednesday, June 29th, from 6 p.m. to 7:30. And this is at the South Oxnard Center at 200 East Bard Road in Oxnard. The second session will be on Monday, August 1st, at the same time at the same location. And then also, I believe I mentioned previously that we're working on bringing the CAP to or Climate Action and Adaptation Plan to the commission for a study session. So that was originally or tentatively scheduled for this meeting, but that has been pushed to our July 7th meeting. So as we're preparing that packet, our long range division wanted to ask if any of the commissioners would like to have the actual climate action plan hard copy or if a link is sufficient. So if you guys could let us know if you guys would prefer to have the actual paper copies of that. It's I believe about a 300-page document. So they just wanted to confirm before printing it out for everyone.
Chair Chavez, Mr. Pearson, I'll follow up on an email. I probably don't want everything printed, but maybe just sections, but I'll do that in an email. So thank you.
Anyone want to print a copy? It looks like we might be okay with the hyperlink to the document. All right, yeah,
Okay, and then I will follow up with Vice Chair Rejo on his. All right, thank you, and that's all the comments that I have.
thank you. I apologize. I'm gonna take a step back real quick. I forgot to mention, and I would hate myself if I didn't mention this. Tomorrow is the National Dump the Pump Day. Public transit agencies, they like to give free rides so that people use public transit as versus taking their car, especially since gas prices are what, $6.50, $6.57 right now. Some participating members are Camarillo Area Transit, Gold Coast Transit, Moore Park City Transit, Ojai Trolley, Simi Valley Transit, Thousand Oaks Transit, Valley Express, as well as the VCTC Big Blue buses. So many options for anybody. Just visit the websites. Gold Coast Transit has a good app, so you can plan your trip from point A to point B, and they give you real-time information. So if there's no further business before the commission, and if there's no objection to adjournment, we will be adjourned to our next meeting, which is Thursday, July 7th, 2022 at 6 p.m. right here in the council chambers. As always, thank you everyone for all your hard work. Have a great night and stay safe.